with their creative potential showing everywhere. So thank you for choosing to be here today. Thank you for choosing to participate in this center, however you are doing it. Today I get to finish up talking about the lessons from Karen Russo's Money Keys on Sundays. The classes that are going on during the week are going to continue for a week or two more yet because they still want to talk some more. And that's very cool because the information that is in this book has surprised me because it didn't look like it was going to turn out to be as amazing as it is. It's really become almost a reference book because it gives us something to point back to and look at and ponder how we interact with our lives and with the world that we live in. I didn't know. I mean, I just read it before we did it, but still, it's one of those things like everything else. Once you apply it and you start thinking about what is presented, oh, that too, okay. So today's talk is called Putting It All Together. And as I've thought about this title this week, I've come all the way back to the beginning with Reverend Karen's initial question. What's money for? Money is a tool. It's an effect. It's a result. It's an outcome. And it's evidence of how we choose to spend our time or not. Because really the point is it's evidence of how we choose to steward or take care of or spend or use our life force. It's just a piece of the story. It's nothing more than that. And so here as I close this month talking about prosperity and abundance and this infinite opportunity that each one of us lives in, it's not a thing that has supreme power, regardless of what you believe you have heard from the world outside this room. It's evidence. It's a tool. It provides an ability to achieve certain things. And that's all it is. And so each one of us has this infinite creative potential and this ability to manifest the life of our choosing, whether or not this is the tool we use. Plain and simple. And it's not the only tool we have. It's just a convenience of our present day universe. So one of the things that's part of the teaching of this philosophy, and also part of what Reverend Karen wrote in that book, is she focuses on this law of cause and effect. And I had a realization about this law this week. It's like, it's a governor on the system. We don't actually, how do I say this in a way that doesn't sound terrible? We don't have as much control over the effect. In fact, we don't have any control over the effect. Our control is on the cause side. And what's the cause? What we think, what we believe, what we focus on, what we decide. So our choice, our decision, is how we create the world in our minds. It's the first song that David and the band did. It's how we see ourselves in our world. And then we get the effect that is the evidence of our beliefs. So if you're looking at the evidence going, well, that really sucks. It's like, what can I change here? There's only one thing. And that is how we perceive the world and how we perceive the other people in our world. Because that's where our power is. That's where our ability is. That's where our opportunity to create a different experience is. The world of form, the world in front of our eyes, the world that we see, is simply, it's almost an artifact. it's evidence. It's an expression of the thought that's in our minds that shows up as this experience. You might have to let that soak in a little bit, because it's not the way the world sees things. And it is a core teaching for the science of mind, because cause is what we have mastery of, and effect is like, is it working? Yes or no? So, how does it work? I mean, I said it was a governor on the system. We think different thoughts. We try them on, and we look and see what happens. And then we make adjustments, because we're always free to change our minds, right? So we try it out. Well, I like that, so I'm going to keep doing it. We try it out. Well, that's not so good. And so we change, which means you have to be okay changing. And change is scary, because it means that I didn't make the right decision the first time. Is that bad? Are you just a learning organism? Are you a being who is able to step into a greater experience of life than you had before because you were able to change your mind? Food for thought, right? So here's the trick. I put quotes around that word. Here's the trick. Because cause and effect is a law, like gravity. You don't have to say, "Hi, gravity, work today, please." Gravity says, you're here, it works. Cause and effect is a law. You create the cause, you have the experience of the effect. The law says, whatever you ask, whatever you claim, yes, my beloved. It doesn't say, are you serious? It just says, okay. And it doesn't even pause. It just says, alrighty then. Oops. And then we get to change our minds and pick differently. And so that's how we know what we're doing. And that's basically how it works in the world of form. And so that's an undercurrent, that's an underlayment if you build houses. That's a thing that's underneath the operation of life. We change what we think and we get a different experience. So, putting a bow on this month, yesterday I found a list of 6 factors that result in having the experience of this ephemeral thing called quality of life. Nothing on this list will surprise you, or at least I don't think it will. What's on the list? Health is first. Wealth was higher than I expected. Positive experiences, positive relationships, doing something meaningful. Happiness. Boy, there's an elusive word. And then achieving something that you think is meaningful. Well, obviously, every single one of those words is up for discussion, because there's not a finite, except for health, maybe we have an agreement on what health means, but every single one of those other words has a broad interpretation of what it means. Health. So I've been having some health challenges this last year. It's really the first time in my life I've not been like absurdly healthy. And so I have a new appreciation for what health means. Sometimes, if you're having a long-term experience, healthy means waking up in the morning and feeling pretty decent and not hurting too much and being able to get up out of bed and go, I think it'll work. And I didn't have that awareness. So in a way, this last year, which has been, real ugly in some ways, has been really useful to me because I didn't know. I had no idea that everybody wasn't just like, Captain America running around. And now I have a new appreciation of this word, health. And I have a new awareness of what that means. And yes, I feel fabulous. And I'm on the road to recovery if I'm thinking about this idea of, do I have a completely healthy physiology? Yeah. It's better. It's getting better every day. Am I healthy? Yes. I'm upright. I'm walking. I'm talking. I've had caffeine. I'm good. So my appreciation of the value of health to my quality of life is a whole lot more grounded than it was a year ago, because I actually understand what the word means now to me. And every single person's going to have a different interpretation because they're going to have a different experience of that. The second point on that list is the magic word wealth. How much is enough? The answer depends on what your expectations are about money, where you live, the circumstances of your life, what your needs are, and what the money is for. The original study from Princeton in 2010 was conducted by an economist and a psychologist, and they said that on average, the American quality of life, or life satisfaction, didn't improve above a certain dollar amount. But the day-to-day human experience didn't depend on having that certain dollar amount. And the reason I'm not speaking their magic number is that the study has been debunked. It's been, we thought that was a good idea, but maybe not. It ain't necessarily so. There is no magic number if you are endlessly chasing the bucks. There can't be. That's just how it is. And depending on what your expectation of acquiring and living and showing stuff, your number may be higher than the average bear. So what does it take for you to experience a life of joy, to experience a life of delight and freedom? It depends on what you value. It depends on what you put your emphasis, what you put your mind on. And as long as you chase an ephemeral number, you're not ever going to be happy. So it's not about the gold nugget. It's about what does it take for you to have the experience that you choose. The next thing on the list is positive relationships. And every single one of us is going to have a different understanding, different interpretation of what this word means too. And our definition will likely change over the course of our lives. Having someone around that affirms we're worthy and lovable without needing to be different is actually necessary when we're young. And if we don't get it, then we get to create it ourselves as we grow older. And if mommy and daddy were petting you on the head and said, "Thank you, don't ever change," then you're really in trouble. Because we change. It is part of maturation and growing up. We become different. And if your people that told you you were okay had a problem with you changing, well, then you're stuck. So we get to have this awareness of positive relations change over time as we change our circles, change where we live, change what we do, change who we choose to interact with. So I'm going to take the next three items at the same time because I really think they're interconnected. Doing something meaningful, happiness, and achieving something that you perceive as valuable. Think about your own life. You get to define what's meaningful. And it's not just one thing. You get to decide what makes you happy. And you get to decide what achievement looks like. For me this week, one thing that was really meaningful to me and made me really, really happy was planting some flowers in my side yard. Now, is that my goal in life? No. But having a pretty place to sit and watch the sun come up and watch the sun go down does add quality to my life. And my little garden plot is pleasurable to me. And since I plant native species, if there happens to be a hungry hummingbird that's coming around looking for those red flowers that are full of nectar, I'm making hummingbirds happy too. Because that's meaningful and important to me. So it's not just this great big huge thing that's going to give you fame and fortune. It's what does it take to feel meaningful to you? The answer varies, and it changes. And it will change again over time. So did I feel accomplished when I finished? You bet. I got those little suckers in the ground. It was excellent. Would other people think that had value? Maybe, maybe not. Does it matter? Not even. Is it meaningful in the big picture? Depends. We get to decide. We get to determine what gives us the experience of creating value and whether we value what we're doing or not. And I encourage you to consider that if you're doing something that doesn't give you the experience of value, you might want to look at that. Because if we're choosing to spend our time on something that doesn't give us the experience of value, maybe it's time to renegotiate. Because we're the ones that do that. Another thing I got to do this week was I shipped off the last of my collection of plant books to a herbarium that I used to study in. I had, most of a shelf, and I hunted to find some place to give these books away because they're technical books, actually, and everybody's not going to know what to do with them, and the goose I know wouldn't have a clue. So what do you do with technical books like that? You find a home where they can be valued and appreciated and used if they have, continuing value. And it gave me a sense of immense satisfaction to know that these books that I have been hauling around, and they've been occupying space in my world for years, I've given them away to somebody who will benefit from them, which gave me a huge sense of success and value and appreciation. I was telling this story to somebody in one of my writing groups, and she said, but you've given away who you are. I said, no, I gave away who I was. And I gave that away to somebody who can get value out of it. I'm not that person anymore. And of course, the next day I wanted to look up the name of a plant. You know how it goes, right? So I talked to Dr. Google, instead, and it worked just fine. There's always that choice. But it was funny to me because I hadn't opened that bookcase forever. And here I am, those little plants I put in the ground, it's like, I need to know about that one. My books are gone. Okay, Dr. Google can help me. So we get to have the experience we create, period. And if we don't like it, we get to change our minds and pick differently. So, psychologist Amy Daramus wrote, happiness comes from more than just money. It comes from relationships, job satisfaction, and enjoying your life. Think about it for you. What creates an experience of happiness, joy, and life satisfaction for you? Does having money even come in the picture? It may, or it may not. And I actually want to pull our attention up a level, away from money to this idea of the totality of stewardship, What does it mean to be the steward of your life energy? The totalness of your life energy in all the ways it shows up. At the end of the day, this should be our focus, because that's the place where we have mastery, or can choose to have mastery. If we decide how we wish to spend our ability to create in the world. So what's the cause I'm pointing to? We get to decide who and what we will be and do in the world now and next. How do we choose to engage? How do we choose to live? How do we choose to interact? That is within the control of every single person. And that's stewardship of our life energy, our life force, for lack of a better word. So I'm going to read a piece from Dr. Holmes from the Science of Mind text, 383 and 384. We need fear nothing in the universe. We need not be afraid of God. We may be certain that all arrive at the final goal, that not one will be missing. Everyone is an incarnation of God. The soul can no more be lost than God could be lost. We believe in God and that it is good. What more can life demand of us than that we do the best we can and try to improve? If we have done this, we've done well, and all will be right with our souls, both here and hereafter. This leaves us free to work out our own salvation, not with fear or trembling, but with peace and quiet confidence. I thought it was funny that David and the band did the Let the Mystery Be song, because, I mean, here she's asking the question, is it, can I really choose, or is there some rule that I don't know about? Holmes is saying we work out our own salvation, but there is no penalty if we pick wrong. We just get to choose again. So I'm going to anticipate the yebbets and say, from Don Miguel Ruiz, 4 agreements. Always do your best. What does that mean to you? What occurred to me as I thought about this the last time we went through the 4 agreements is, in fact, turning that phrase around and saying, you are already doing the best you can in this moment. The next moment you might do better, you might do worse, but every moment you are always doing the best you can, because who's going to be a slacker on purpose? Really? Even if you're not able to get out of bed, that's the best you can do right now. Where's the penalty? It's an experience. You're always doing the best you can, and there's no comparison. It's not, well, I'm not as good as, pick somebody famous. It doesn't really matter. I'm not as good as them. Well, you're different than them. I'm different than them. Each one of us is doing what we can with the moment that we have. And Holmes is lovely because he says, we may be certain that all arrive at the final goal and not one will be missing. We get to work out our own salvation. This can be really scary if you're expecting there to be a right answer. The right answer is the one you pick. There's no way to do it wrong. If you're used to being told what to do, this is a problem. What do we do when we're responsible for ourselves? What do we do when we have the opportunity to choose how to be in the world? How does that change the direction? When we're the ones that get to decide how we engage. got this great counterpoint, the feedback loop called cause and effect. This is, well, that's not the experience I want. I guess I have to pick something different. So what's money for? A more meaningful question is, how do you steward your life energies? How do you steward your life force? The way we talk about it here is time, talent, and treasure. What big idea or big ideas are you serving with your time, talent, and treasure? And this was a big one for me, do you include yourself in being worthy of being served? Culturally, women especially, are taught to exclude ourselves, serving other people being ground down to a nub. And yet if we don't include ourselves in our own loving kindness, we end up as empty. We end up with nothing left. There's a fake Buddha quote that goes, "You can search throughout the entire universe for someone who is more deserving of your love and affection than you are yourself. And that person is not to be found anywhere. You yourself are, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." The origin of this quote is probably a misinterpretation of a quote from a Burmese monk by the name of Mahasi Sayadaw from 1983. His quote, "A person who deserves more love and affection than one's own self in any place or anywhere cannot be found." His point, and this is interesting to me, his point was, we should love other people as much as we love ourselves. Because in Buddhist teaching, the notion of self-hatred or self-devaluation or self-vilification is missing. They don't have it. It's not there. That's something we Westerners, way back when, created. That's an entirely Western idea, and yet, because it's part of the collective unconscious, we have bought into it. And we get to decide whether we're going to continue feeding the monster or stop. I suggest stopping. So who would you be if you stepped into your most glorious, most fulfilled presence in the world? How would you steward the resources you already have or can learn? Great questions, right? And every single one of us gets to look at this question and decide what our answer is today, right now, tomorrow, in the next minute, in the next hour, in the next day, in the next month, etc. So I'm going to close with the Marianne Williamson quote that I haven't used in a while, from her book, A Return to Love. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as little children do. We are born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. How can you liberate yourself more? The answer is individual, and it will change from moment to moment to moment, and there is no wrong answer. How will you liberate yourself more? Do that. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So now I'm going to roll into the prayer as we pray around here, which is affirmatively. So if I've said something useful for you, hold it in your mind while I speak these words of affirmation. I know this one life that is God. I know it lives as me. I know it lives as each beloved in this room, in this Zoom room, in this YouTube channel, or watching this later. This one life lives as all. And all beings, at all times, have the probability of stepping into a greater yes, of stepping into a greater next wonderful thing, of creating some new experience of quality of life, whether for themselves or for their community. All beings live as this divine self. And even though we might not have that experience in a moment, we are always free to change our mind and choose a different answer. Because life lives as each one of us and expresses and explores and experiences itself as us. And so I accept that offer. I accept that opportunity for myself and know it for all. This infinite creative potential that lives through all beings, expresses through all beings, explores itself and expands by the action, by the decisions, by the movements, by the stillness of all beings. And I know this creative potential acts from love, acts from empowerment, acts from harmony and order and peace. And I know the greater good is served. Celebrating this truth, I relax into it. I allow it, I receive it, I accept it, and I watch it flourish. I accept it, I let it be, and so it is.